Every day when I wake up in the morning, I see the sky and I think about the things that you've made, all the beauty and your glory is showing, yeah. It never bores me to look at the ocean. The waves are crashing, the water spraying up in my face. I look above and all the seagulls are soaring, yeah. We've got to overcome the darkness so we don't get caught in the middle, between the hopeful and the heartless. So, hello, good day, good morning, I just can't stop smiling, because today is a brand new day, and all the darkness and the pain is just fading behind me. Oh Lord, what a beautiful day. All the planets surround me, the way they orbit just boggles my mind, the way the sun keeps on shining, yeah. We've got to overcome the darkness so we don't get caught in the middle, between the hopeful and the heartless. So, hello, good day, good morning, I just can't stop smiling, because today is a brand new day, and all the darkness and the pain is just fading behind me. Oh Lord, what a beautiful day. There's nothing to fear, it'll be okay. It's the day that the Lord has made. It's the day that the Lord has made. There's nothing to fear, it'll be okay. It'll be okay. It's the day that the Lord has made. That the Lord has made. It's the day that the Lord has made. That the Lord has made. So, hello, good day, good morning, I just can't stop smiling, because today is a brand new day, and all the darkness and the pain is just fading behind me. Oh Lord, what a beautiful day.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Live with Post Millennial Doug. Not willing to take that label yet. You keep trying, Martin. Good morning, everyone. Glad you're with us. We are thinking through God's Word together. We are continuing our study of Isaiah, and we're in this section of oracles started back in chapter 13, maybe 12? 13, I think it was. And we saw a lot of, so far we've encountered a lot of sort of positive oracles, if you will, of God revealing that yes, judgment is coming, but there's that day coming, Messiah is coming, and so on. And then now we're entering this stretch where it's a little more sobering and not as much of the hopeful for a little bit here. And today we have a Babylon oracle again. We've already seen one. I think this is a different one, but I want to start by, I know it's a different one. I think it's a different time in Babylon's history. But I will start with a couple of other places. So sorry, I'm a little distracted here. In Isaiah 46, let me pull that up here. Passage that you may know from other studies. Isaiah 46 says this: "Remember the former things long past, for I am God and there is no other. I am God, there is no one like me." Well, why are you saying that, God? What makes you different from all the others? And here's what he says: "Declaring the end from the beginning, and from ancient times things which have not been done, saying, my purpose will be established and I will accomplish all my good pleasure." I don't know about you, but when I quote that, when I read that, when I think about that, God saying, this is why I'm the one true God, and you shouldn't trust the idols and so on, because I can declare the end from the beginning. God knows everything. He's working everything together according to his purpose, the counsel of his will, and those kinds of things, right? And I tend to think at least, about Jesus and the big picture there, that he was planning for the birth, death, and resurrection of Jesus kind of thing. And that's, of course, true, and that is the big one. But we're going to see today there are everything God brings about according to his purposes and his plan. He knows the future. That is comforting, and it's amazing to think about. And I know probably many of you would say you believe that, and it might even talk about the omniscience of God and those kind of things. But to really stop and just ponder the fact that God is sovereignly in control of all things. He knows how the rest of your day is going to play out. He knows what the next days, weeks, months, years for the United States of America or Great Britain or any other nation on earth is. He knows what's going to go on with the war in Ukraine, all of that. God declares the end from the beginning. And today we're going to see God declaring what's going to happen in the future with Babylon as a means of instruction and warning for the Jews. So that's just kind of a broad picture. It was on my mind as I was thinking about this oracle today. The other thing is Revelation 18:1. I know some of you are hoping that we will do a study of Revelation one of these days, and maybe we will. But here is a statement in Revelation that draws from our passage today, and we're not going to try to tie them together. I just want you to see that what we find in Isaiah, some of this language is used in Revelation. It says, after these things I saw another angel coming down from heaven, having great authority, and the earth was illuminated with his glory. And he cried mightily with a loud voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and has become a dwelling place of demons, a prison for every foul spirit, and a cage for every unclean and hated bird. For all the nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. The kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth have become rich through the abundance of her luxury, and so on. So this idea of Babylon falling is grabbed from several places in the prophets, but especially here in Isaiah 21. Okay, so let's get to the oracle at hand. I want to start at the end because, as I'll describe for you, this is a very difficult oracle to determine and conclude what's envisioning, which time period. So let me show you. So Isaiah 21:9 says, Now behold, here comes a troop of riders, horsemen in pairs, and one said, Fallen is Babylon, and all the images of her gods are shattered on the ground. So you see, there's this troop, right? Horsemen here coming in pairs, and they have this declaration, Babylon has fallen, and they're telling somebody that all the gods, all the images, all the idols of Babylon have been destroyed. So that's how this vision ends. And then Isaiah says, "O my threshed people, my afflicted of the threshing floor, what I have heard from the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, I make known to you." So that's interesting because the end of this oracle is Isaiah writing to a people, his people, who he describes them as threshed and afflicted on the threshing floor. They've been beaten down. This is consistent with everything else that we've been seeing, that God is going to bring judgment on Judah. And it's going to hurt. And you think, if you know what threshing is, it's separating the wheat from the chaff kind of thing. And they used various means, but stomping, pounding, different ways to do that. So It's going to be bad news for the Jews, but he wants them to know, Isaiah says, I heard this, the Lord of armies, the Lord of hosts, he gave me this vision. He gave me this message, and I'm making it known to you. So the question is, why? Why is Isaiah wanting Judah to know this message? So this is going to be, as we've already seen, this is going to be the fall of Jerusalem, fall of Babylon. The question is, which fall of Babylon? It's easy to think this is the big one. When the Medes and the Persians came and destroyed them, you've got the scene in Daniel, for instance, and that you're probably familiar with, the handwriting on the wall and so on. I don't think so. I don't think that's what this is getting at. So when we think of the sweep of history around this time period, I typically categorize things as you've got the Assyrians coming down on the northern kingdom, and then the Babylonians conquer the Assyrians and everybody else. Then the Medo-Persians come and conquer the whole world. Then the Greeks come and conquer the whole world. And then the Romans conquer the whole world, right? These huge kingdoms that just continue to, one after another, destroy everything and conquer it, I should say, not destroy everything. And we see that in Daniel and so on. But realize there's more going on. Those are the big victories, the big empires. But in the meantime, there's lots of other skirmishes and back and forth. Assyria and Babylon went at it several times before Assyria really gained the upper hand, and then Babylon came with a vengeance with Nebuchadnezzar, and they gained the upper hand and defeated Assyria. So it wasn't like Assyria with no opposition, and then Babylon with no opposition. It's not quite like that. So what I think is the setting for this, and I'm not going to try to prove this to you. You can, if you read commentaries and different books, you're going to find a couple different possibilities here. But I'm going to just tell you what I think it is. I think this is the time when Assyria is threatening, and Babylon, before it becomes the Great Babylon, is still pretty strong at this point, and they are pushing back against Assyria, and everybody is trying to get alliances. We've seen this already with Egypt, Assyria, Philistia. The Judah. They want Judah. They want Israel. They all want these other nations to come alongside them and form a resistance to whoever is coming. So I think Babylon here is convinced that it can overcome. It can throw off Assyria and not be conquered by Assyria, and it is seeking the alliance of Judah to help fight off Assyria. And I think this is in Hezekiah's day. Hezekiah was the son of Ahaz. We've already seen Ahaz. He was a wicked man, made a poor decision, refused to receive the sign that God was going to give him. Well, this is his son Hezekiah, and a envoy from Babylon is coming to Hezekiah, saying, "Hey, join up with us and let's resist Assyria." And Isaiah is warning Hezekiah, don't do it, because if you do, you will be aligning with a kingdom, or at least a nation that is about to fall. Does that make sense? Martin says, do you look at the book of Revelation from amillennialist, idealist, eschatology viewpoint? I am still sorting through my view of Revelation. So that's part of why we're doing the study, because so many passages in Revelation appeal to the prophets. And I thought, well, let's just go through and get a good handle on some of the prophets, and then we'll see where we land on Revelation. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, if you put a gun to my head and I was forced to make a decision, I'm not Amil, so I wouldn't go there. I lean a little bit some days toward Revelation being mostly about the fall of Jerusalem in 70 AD. But so much of that depends on the dating of the writing of the book of Revelation, and I'm not convinced entirely whether it was before or after 70 AD. So You can ask more questions, but I'll probably push you off because that's just a huge, huge concept for now. Okay, so let's get to the Isaiah 21. The oracle concerning the wilderness of the sea, which, as we now know, because we looked at the end of the story, this is Babylon. As wind storms in the Negev sweep on, Negev is the southern area there, it comes from the wilderness, from a terrifying land. So it begins with this ominous. It's a desert, and there's these windstorms, which the Palestinians would have known well. Windstorms that sweep up through the wilderness kind of thing, and they're no good. They're harsh, but it's coming from a terrifying land. So there's something coming, and you can just sense the ominous element here. And Isaiah says, a harsh vision has been shown to me. The treacherous one deals treacherously. The destroyer destroys. So based on what we'll see here in a minute, when Isaiah is going to say, I longed for the twilight of Assyria. I longed for this nation, Sennacherib, the leader of Assyria, coming down. I longed for his destruction, right? Because they're going to conquer, depending on when this is written. I think this is probably after the fall of the northern kingdom. And they're pressing in on Judah. And so Isaiah is saying, I long for this traitor, this treacherous one, this destroyer. I long for himself to be destroyed. He longs for Assyria to be conquered. So that's the vision he's seeing, is Assyria is continuing to march on and destroy nations, and they're pressing in on Judah. And now we hear from Babylon. And the Babylonian king at this time would have been Merodach-Baladan. If you know your history, you might know a little bit about that guy. He says, go up, Elam, lay siege, Media. I have made an end of all the groaning she has caused. So Assyria continues to do its thing, but the king of Babylon says, I got this. I got this. And at this point, this is before Media, the Medes and Persians are joined together. Again, I think that's all future. So this is now Media is on Babylon's side, and the king is saying, I got this. I'm going to send folks from Elam and Media, and they're going to overthrow the Assyrians. And again, the idea is for Judah, for Hezekiah, to join with Elam and Media and Babylon and push off the Assyrians. And Isaiah, what he sees is devastating to him. Again, look how he started verse 2. A harsh vision has been shown to me. And now verse 3. For this reason, my loins are full of anguish. Pains have seized me like the pains of a woman in labor. I am so bewildered, I cannot hear, so terrified, I cannot see. My mind reels. Horror overwhelms me. The twilight I longed for has been turned for me into trembling. That's the twilight I was talking about. He so wanted Assyria to be defeated. But what he sees in this vision that God has given him, it's mind-numbing in its horror. We do have a little bit of the historical record of when Sennacherib in 689 BC conquered Babylon. It was devastating. It was awful. They went in with no restraint, and the kind of language that is used of conquering Babylon there in 689, it's the kind of language that would cause someone like Isaiah watching in his mind's eye, watching this vision that God gave him of just the slaughter of everyone in Babylon. So I think that's what's happening here. So Isaiah sees this. So there's again, a group sent ambassadors sent to try to recruit Hezekiah and Judah to join with Babylon. And what Isaiah is saying is, don't do it, Hezekiah. I've seen the end. The one who declares the end from the beginning, he has shown me this is what's going to happen to Babylon. And as awful as Assyria is, you don't want to be aligned with Babylon because their end is coming and it's going to be horrendous. And what's happening back in Judah is they're inviting the ambassadors in and they're throwing this party as Merodach-Baladan seeks to get them to join forces. It says they set the table, they spread out the cloth, they eat, they drink. Rise up, captains, oil the shields. So Hezekiah is entertaining this, and he thinks it sounds like a good idea to join up with Babylon. And they're having a big feast with the ambassadors and saying, "Yeah, let's do this. It's going to be good." Isaiah says, "No, for thus the Lord says to me, go, station the lookout, let him report what he sees." So again, this is Isaiah saying, this is what I was told by the Lord. He gave me this vision, told me to go set up a lookout, someone whose job it was to go up on a high place, and they were trained to look far and discern very quickly what was coming. You remember later on we're going to see this famous passage where it talks about the feet of the one who brings good news. And the image there is of this lookout, this scout who is trained. And if the people ran a certain way, if the messengers ran a certain way, it meant defeat. And if they ran light-footed and fast, it meant victory and good news. They were bringing good news. The same kind of thing here. Go station that lookout, a trained man who is bold and will speak truth. Because if you want information you can count on, if you're a king and you send in reconnaissance soldiers, you send someone on the lookout, you want you want the accurate information. If this is a strong nation that's going to conquer you, you want to know that. If they are a weak nation, if they're coming in victory, you want to know that. If they're coming in defeat, you want to know that. So he says, go station the lookout. Go tell someone, send someone who will tell what he sees. And when he sees riders, horsemen in pairs, a train of donkeys, a train of camels, let him pay close attention, very close attention, and see what this parade is. Is this a parade of the conquered or conquerors? Then the lookout called, and interesting, literally here it's the one like a lion. So these lookouts have to be bold and brave and willing to say what they've seen. O Lord, I stand continually by day on the watchtower and am stationed every night at my guard post. Now behold, here comes the troop of riders, horsemen in pairs, and one said, fallen, fallen is Babylon, and all the images of her gods are shattered on the ground. O my threshed people, my afflicted of the threshing floor, what I have heard, Isaiah says, from the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, I make known to you. So again, you see the warning here is, don't side up with Babylon because she's going to be defeated. Leading back in pairs, the horsemen, they're coming back with these two groups, and probably they're leading pairs of horses without riders, which mean they've killed everybody, and now they're bringing these extra horses back because they're going to use them now in their army. So that's what I think is going on in this oracle, in which case we have here a warning shot to God's people: don't side with Babylon. Now, pretty simple. Again, I find this interesting on a couple levels. One is there in the book of Revelation as whatever the time frame, Martin, whatever time frame this is, whatever that's describing. Again, we see this over and over and over again. The vision that John sees grabs images from the Old Testament prophets, and we're not to look at it like a direct fulfillment. That's not the language that's used in Revelation. Instead, it's grabbing familiar events and locations and people and objects and grabbing them and now putting them in a picture that communicates some association with what they already knew from the Old Testament prophets. At least that's what I think is going on in Revelation. So when John sees and hears the angel saying Babylon is fallen, there's some association with Isaiah 21 and other places, but it's not a fulfillment. I hope you can understand what I'm talking about there. Again, since we're not really studying Revelation, then we'll save that for another time. The other thing is God knows, and we can take comfort in this as God's people. With all that's happening in our nation, that's all that's happening, that's alarming, all the hard things. God knows, God's in control, God's working out his plan, and we can certainly heed the warning here. Don't make alliances with the world, with evil empires, even when persecution comes. Trust the Lord. Trust the Lord to care for his own. All right, so we got done a little bit early here. There's really nothing else that I'm compelled to say about that. Are there any lingering questions that you have? I know Martin's going to want to go post-mill or Revelation. I'm probably going to deflect those at this point. Any other questions about Isaiah or anything else we've covered in Isaiah? Or do you want to call it a day a little bit early? I'll give you just a moment here to see, because I know there's a slight delay, but it's okay to get done early too. I know we've got plenty of things to do going on these days. All right, I'm not seeing anything, and you're probably typing just about the time that I log off. Your question will come through, but I'm going to take that chance. Have a great day in the Lord. Trust the Lord. Know that he's all in control of all things, and we'll come back tomorrow and continue on with Isaiah. Take care.